Guru Nation, you know this man needs no introduction. It's David LaHaye. He's one of the SOS OGs, original gangster, original Guru Nation as well. He's a side owner. He's a repeat side owner now, serial side owner, and he just came off of a successful exit on one. And he's also, we're gonna get this interview can go many directions. I don't actually have a plan for it, but, and I was telling you before we started, you had the line of the conference for me. I might be the only one who thinks this is the line of the conference, but it resonated with me. You said the ceiling to progress is complexity, right? Is that right? More or
So
less?
maybe I misstated it at the conference, but I think the phrase is that the complexity is the ceiling of growth.
Complexity is the ceiling of growth. Same shit, man.
Yeah,
Like
same, but you're right.
in my head, I envision looking at a ceiling and seeing like gears and all kinds of shit, like an escape room.
Yeah.
And then you have to like smash through it to get to the next floor,
Hmm.
only then to see the same ceiling above, maybe it's higher. And this is like analogous to site owners expanding into therapeutic areas or trying to scale and do more with less, or like me and you, site owners that cannot possibly have their hands in every aspect of the operation. Like I'm a year into this now where I don't know really what's going on too much other than the big picture stuff, like obviously mistakes I get involved with, but like the day to day, or like when we first started, I knew every patient by name. Now it's like I don't know any of them by name, unless they're like a problem patient or there's something
Yeah.
going on. And I feel like this is that quote you said, the reason it resonated with me, it's like it resonates on many levels for site owners, whether you're talking about the site itself, whether you're talking about you as a human being and an entrepreneur within that space. There's just a lot to unpack from
There is.
that quote. So kudos to you. Did you invent this quote or you read it somewhere?
I I mean, I'm a fan of like the Walter Isaacson biographies of
Da
like,
Vinci one's good. I'm halfway through it.
yeah. So I think of maybe knowingly or unknowingly, half of the stuff I say that sounds remotely intelligent comes from a Walter Isaacson quote in
All
one of his
right.
books. So,
Listen, man. Speaking of books, you ever read Robert Caro?
oh, let's see. I no, I
It's
haven't.
okay. Check this out, dude. I got into he's a great biographer. So he wrote the book on Robert Moses, the guy who planned New York City in the
Oh,
50s, the
okay.
most
Yep.
powerful guy in New York City politics ever, who was never elected. He was the city planner. He built Manhattan the way it is now, New York City the way it is now. So he started this author, Robert Caro, his quest is for power, but it's on the negative side, like the dark side of power, how people
Okay.
try to get power. See, Walter Isaacson focuses more on people's strengths, right?
Yeah.
Their
Light
characteristics.
triad, not so much the dark triad. Yeah.
Exactly, their virtues. Robert Caro goes the opposite. So he studied Robert Moses, who's a total asshole, and now he's writing, or he wrote, a five-volume series on Lyndon Johnson,
Oh, wow. Okay.
who might go down like after this. He one of the worst presidents and most like the dark triad, like you said, people of all time. He's 90 years old. He writes his books on a typewriter and he's finishing up volume five of Lyndon Johnson. So
Wow.
they're like each volume's like 1,000 pages. So
Yeah.
I'm into the first one, which is great. It's about his childhood, college, and you can see the elements of, the seeds planted of like, okay, he learned how to attain power, but he does it in a way that's like horrible, right? So it's
Yeah.
almost what not to do.
This is I mean, this may be a guru after dark topic, but I can go on 5 hours talking about like this.
Well, you and
Because,
I know people like that. I mean,
oh yeah, no question about it. So, what's interesting is at the higher level or higher I go within, working in business, you start to see other personalities kind of, um, personalities are kind of left in like the lower rungs of the ladder. And you see more and more of different types of personalities. And one of the common personality is is the dark triad. Is somebody that is like, they have to have some kind of psychopathic tendencies to, not like they have to execute on things that are very harmful that hurt other people, and they can't have any empathy in order to do that. And another item is like the Machiavellian
Mhm.
nature of it is that you have to put lots of like long-term planning in order to do like what Robert Moses or Lyndon B. Johnson was doing. And I don't know if this is true, but I heard somewhere that there's a and I don't maybe the John F. Kennedy assassination um report will shed some more light on it. But I just heard somewhere, probably a YouTube wormhole I went down one day, like that there's a there's a lot of suspicion that Lyndon B. Johnson really wanted to be the president. And so, obviously you can't exactly like to do something like that, or to do some, other things that, you know, um, people once they achieve power are capable of doing. You can't have that conscience bothering you. And one book I read a long time ago, before having kids, I would, I tried to read a book a week. And, so I would go through all the classics, and one of them obviously is The Prince by Machiavelli.
Mhm.
And it was like when I first read it, I thought it was all interesting and intriguing, but I'm like, this is just not really, usable, right? And now, as somebody with a conscience, I use it, but I can use it to identify Machiavellian actions and behavior in other people,
Right.
you know. So that I think is absolutely fascinating. And then there's the Robert Greene books.
Oh yeah, I got
They're-
them right
they're
here.
lovely. You do? I've got 48.
The Daily Laws is right here, and then yeah, I read all his books, but I gotta go back to them all because those are books you gotta keep revisiting as you grow. You know, like you said, you've developed a conscious. I think I'm similar in that regard. Like
Yep.
things used to be all about me, and then I realized, well, it's not really the case. I'm just
Yeah,
one of many here.
yeah. I mean, even if you're at the helm of an organization, it's like you have to put everybody else like before you. So
Yeah,
kind of a pivot into like the business, like in business nonfiction, there's the guy's name's escaping me, but there's a book called Good to Great,
Jim Collins.
Jim Collins. Yeah. So like I love that book, and I like to put management and leadership and follow the level 5 servant leadership model as a way. And honestly, to do that though, it's like you have to eat a lot of crap, basically, because it's oftentimes very difficult. But as long as you're constantly developing and moving forward your people, like just like you had said, you're not seeing patients, you don't know their names anymore. It's like the higher up you go, the less actual work that you do in that
Hmm.
sense, but the more
Hmm.
of like directing people and resources at problems and challenges.
Yeah.
And there's an endless amount of compromises that light triad people, like people that are servant leaders, have to do, that nobody unless they're a Machiavellian and they see this as like a strategic retreat in order to get do a bread and circus to show how magnanimous they are, because they're planning on utilizing it negatively in the future, like they would never do. But it's something that's like a daily act of somebody who is kind of like a virtuistic, servant leader.
Yes, leaders eat last. Simon Sinek's whole thing,
Yes, yes.
his whole philosophy.
Yep.
And there's ways you can. So yes, I've been partnered with in the past with very dark triad people. I didn't know how to articulate it back then, but knowing what I know now, only 15 years ago, is obvious. Like, hey, I should have never joined forces with these
Right.
people. You know, back then you're naive and you're like, well, I'm more of this optimistic kind of guy. Like, I've always, even when things were all about me, I was always like, well, these employees, they're the ones working for you. I've always had like some, I don't know if empathy is the right word, but I had like that leeway where people can kind of be given more freedom, right? Catch more flies with honey type of thing. And then
Yeah.
I've partnered with, and on paper it looks like a perfect partnership. Dark Triad. No, everything's by force and manipulation and scare and fear. And I realized, yeah, on paper, like those philosophies kind of mix well, and you'll
Yeah,
have like a balance, but in reality, the emotions are there, and the emotions from both sides,
yeah,
they don't mix that cleanly, they're not compatible. And
yeah,
it's very important to understand these things later
yeah.
on. Of course, I understand more than I did back then.
Yeah, and this is so. I mean, you're so right, and I mentioned before, like the higher up you go, you see kind of an enrichment within certain personality types, and and I found that there's certain things that are almost universal, right? Like there's kind of this outward perfectionism, you know,
Mhm.
uh, and that's kind of like oftentimes seen as a mask of like insecurity, like you don't
Mhm.
like you don't belong there, so you just go overboard to appear perfect. And then there's kind of like there's kind of a combination of the two. There's an immediate charm offensive. And then that charm offensive is a manipulation tactic. And then eventually, once you kind of recognize, I'm like, wait a minute, you're not who you say you are, there's a 180-degree turning that goes from charm offensive to strong arm, and
Right.
so that's it's a pain to kind of find yourself on that, the back end of
The
that.
back
But
end of that is,
but
yeah, it's horrible.
one of my one of my current muses is like I want to read a bunch of Russian literature like I've always loved, and these are rereads, right? So in Russian, I can't speak or read Russian, so you have to read a translation. So I'm taking some of these critical books that I've read before, and I don't know, I love all like great classic literature, but there's just something incredible about Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, and I'm reading the uh, what is it? The Master and Margarita right now. And this is kind of cool
Okay.
because I'm utilizing AI for it. But before I get too far away from the point, um, like I find in Russian literature, particularly in Dostoevsky, it's like you can see everybody represented by characters in in their novel. And so if you
Correct.
want to understand people, understand what motivates people, understand personalities, especially when you have like these, some people that kind of get pleasure at other people's pain, this type of Schadenfreude.
Yes.
I was reading,
Yes.
I was reading like like couple weeks ago, I started The Master and Margarita, and in the first chapter, there's a scene where there are two, there's two artists that are meeting, two poets meeting in a park, and then the character Woland, which is like the Faustian character of like comes in and just basically invites himself into their conversation, and there's all of these really interesting um, like I guess windows into who Woland is, and like one of the things is that he takes delight in saying things that are actively hurting these people, and that's actually one of the things that I've used when I like there's partner that I had years ago. I noticed that he kind of got like very like excited when he noticed that when he was humiliating and insulting an employee. I mean, that's obviously a red flag, right? But it's like
Right.
that, gave him more excitement, and like when he realized that he wielded that type of power, where I think power and control is more of something that you have to earn, not something that you earn through force, but something that you earn through putting together a vision and saying, "Hey guys, we're going here. Like, come and be part of me." It'll be rather than through that level of like, I'm going to humiliate you if you don't.
And I had a partner like that, almost exactly like that as well in the past. And
Mm.
yeah, power is this weird thing where you kind of get it. I got it early on just from being a business owner. If you have employees, you have power.
Yeah,
And I never really got into that whole thing. To me, I was always more of a try to be a people pleaser, which is another issue that over the years I've worked on.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, I've been around people who take pleasure in seeing
yeah,
other people, suffer because of their power that they have, and they're willing it on them.
yeah,
Um,
And
I
that's
mean,
the
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just to do an asterisk on the people pleaser comment, like that's something where, if you're an entrepreneur and you have a small business, right? Like the biggest asset that you have, okay, I don't want to say the biggest asset, but the a very large asset of a small business versus like a Coca-Cola or a Berkshire Hathaway or a, Ford Motor Company or a Boeing or whatever, is that you're really fast and you can turn and you can develop new things and you can go after, so that's a huge benefit. So the trouble with people like being a people pleaser, and I'm saying this as a recovering people pleaser,
Hmm.
is that oftentimes you have a certain degree of let's see, like a certain degree of unwillingness to do something. So if you as the boss gives a directive to a people pleaser, they don't want to tell you, hey, I don't think this is the best route forward. And so oftentimes what happens is you get like a silent quitting, right? Whereas like, okay, well, I won't do this, or I will come up with some excuse and not do this. So that's another interesting personality, like
Yeah.
personal work to work around as like the servant leader. That I just love digging into like Russian literature and just seeing how like these characters and Fyodor Dostoevsky's mind kind of worked when, made productive things happen with people like that. And that's what we
Yeah.
want really in this industry is that just about everybody, they're in it because they want to help people, right? And so, there's a like, you really have to, if you can't figure out how to work with people like that, then you're going to have a lot of difficulty within the industry. And so I think for you and me, given the fact that we're both recoverers or people pleaser anonymous, coin holders, I think that should be, that's gives us a little bit of insight and ability to work with them in the way that, many other people can't.
Yeah. I still think it's better raw ingredients to start
Mhm.
from that than to start from generating, satisfaction out of others' sufferings. I think that's a lot harder to, I think that, like, I guess lack of virtue is
Yeah.
a lot harder to mold into something functional, long-term sustaining in business, as opposed to like people pleaser can be molded into, and I think it's kind of what I've done into like just a good person to work for, and like it helps with employee retention at that point. But yeah, we can spend an hour just on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So smashing through this complexity, man. I'm in the middle of it right now, and you've done it already, and now you're in it again.
Yeah,
So th there's some people, like some site owners, that never even recognize it or never even attempt to do it, and they're okay just having, hey, this is gonna be my ceiling every year. On a good year, I can make this range. On a bad year, it'll be this range. Like this is my ceiling, this is my floor. And they never go through that ceiling because it's too hard and they got other things going on, or they like it as a lifestyle business, which by the way, I think those kind of sites are going away over the next decade. I'm doing a 10-part series on why we're now in the golden era of sites. But the cliff notes is the small standalone side hustle sites are going to be forced to join a big network or go out of business. So, point of all this is most people who are in it right now, even if that was your attitude in the past, if you want to continue to be in business this next decade, which is going to be one of the best decades ever for research sites, knock on wood,
I agree.
you got to smash through the complexity ceiling. And it's not fun, man. I'm doing it right now.
Mhm. It's
It's
really
not fun.
so this is interesting because there's 30 different avenues that I could take to add to this. One, I guess one thing that I would share that's kind of where, because you've got a choice. You could either be focused or you can have dispersed focus on multiple different things. And that's the biggest challenge, I think, to a new site owner is because you just need something and you're more focused on like bringing in some trial. You're less concerned with the therapeutic area as long as you get something. Is it asthma? Is it COPD? Is it a vaccine study? Is it, NASH trial? Is it, cardio? Is it neuroscience? Like whatever it happens to be, it's like you're trying to get something. But what I find is really like what I found in the first couple of years is that I would get a study, and then by the time I figured out how to recruit patients, that study would close.
Yeah.
So then the question is, okay, do you want to get another study and then learn an entirely new therapeutic area and then go through the same thing? And the answer is both yes and no. Like the answer is yes in that like, I want to continue to build out the base and broaden like and create new business units. But the answer is also no, because what you really want to do is you want to get another similar study like that has the similar recruitment process so that you can basically start where you left off with the previous study. And then all of a sudden, like that's going to make everything better, right?
Yes.
You're going to have more sponsors giving you studies because they're impressed by what you've done. And I mean, I think this is something I read in your book actually that
Wow.
the best way to get additional studies and to do business development is to be on the preferred. Yep, that's it.
This is a
Ah,
dark triad
yeah.
biography, right? Yeah.
Hey,
Look at
we all
these guys. Look at Chris right here. Chris is the opposite of a dark triad.
that I was going to say he's got to be the dark triad.
No,
Um,
he's not the bad business partner.
yeah, but God, where was I on this?
So, well, you said the answer is yes and no. So, and I agree. That right there is a fork in the road for most people, right? Someone like you or me, not because we're special, I think it's because we figured it out. You need to hire people, train people so you can scale and leverage. Because no one can say yes and no by
Yeah,
yourself, right? You have to have a system, and that starts the complexity, right? You
yeah,
got to bring someone else. Okay, this person, I can't expect them to go 110% like me, but I'll take 75 and above every day. Like that's fine. I won't
yeah,
accept 50 or low. I can do that myself for free, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so that's becomes okay, let's go yes and no. And then other people are like, no, I don't want to invest in, this is a side hustle. I'm still losing money. I have to pay off my credit cards. So they go the route of no. And then
yeah,
there's some people that go the route of yes without leveraging and they burn themselves out
yeah,
without scaling. So that's the first, I think that you articulated it well, that first fork in the road that all side owners eventually get to if they stay in business, which is not that hard. Within a year, you'll get there, is that first choice. And I think that first choice is going to say a lot about the future of that company and how quickly they can advance or fail.
yeah. I think so as well. Like most people when they start out, they don't really get they don't really get to choose whatever opportunity comes their way. So they're kind of left with like, okay, I got this study, it's this, therapeutic area, so I'll go ahead and try to so I'll go ahead and try this. But I think that this is why, like the more time in the game that you've got, the more likely it is that you'll get kind of another at bat for that same study that you first worked and you then figured out how to recruit patients for. So I think then the question always becomes like, well, how is it that I can create focus, like being too specific about what studies I choose to pursue. And so then you have to look at what the market looks like, where the demand happens to be, and how to really stand out and be something special within that market. And so this is, I think maybe if I don't want to brag too much, but I have like my background has been in product market fit, like taking a new product into an existing market and demonstrating how it can be, utilized within that new market
Wait, what
um,
market were you in?
in biotechnology.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were in omics and all that, right? In the past.
yeah, yep, exactly. And so talk about some complexity. And
Yeah.
how to, how to like taking something like that where you go from where you go from science in a world where everything's hypothesis driven to it being data driven. And now the beauty of it is like you've got AI that can then start asking hypotheses from the data. So anyway, it's been I don't know, a great like I think that all those experiences have been great to kind of take it into like this site world. Um,
I
Hang
really
on.
think this decade, like from 25 to 35, if we should be so lucky that actually lasts a decade, is going to be the golden era for sites. And I think after that is some hybrid of AI and not so golden era, maybe just site networks and big corporations running it all. But this decade, we got to figure out
Yeah.
to smash through all this complexity as we can.
It's going to be Uh, like I think my 2 cents on this is like I absolutely believe so. And you can either be left in the dust because like artificial intelligence is no question about it really affecting or is really going to either like leave you behind or you can employ it and get ahead. Also with the movement in the private equity markets buying gobbling up sites and you'll have site networks and generally how uh, I guess if we zoom back even further, I believe overall that patient recruitment has become more difficult.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's largely because of precision medicine, which is great for patients, but it's very difficult. But it's making our job as site owners and clinical research site managers, it's making our job more difficult to find the patients to, uh,
Of course.
and so it's like you'll have this steadily getting more and more difficult. But at the same time, we have new tools that have never been available to any
But isn't
humans.
that the point of technology? It's to raise the bar, the
Yes.
standard of living, the quality of life for everyone, which this is healthcare. Let's not forget. This is meant to increase not just longevity, but quality of life where we are living. You don't
Yep.
get there by not being more precise in your research and
Hmm.
by the research being more difficult. Like a lot of these tools are here to make the life easier for the sponsor, like to make the output better, more valuable for the sponsor. So it's our job as site owners to figure this out, not just stick our head in the sand and say, no, this is how it was last decade, so I'm gonna force it to be that way this decade.
Yeah. And now it's like we've got a new competitor, right? We got and I guess I can't say competitor, right? Because a lot of people own some equity in them too. But I feel like we're all making this world better for patients at the end of the day. But there's other sites that have business development teams behind them. So they
Big
have,
time. Did you hear about who was that group just yesterday? Cinexcel or something? Cinexcel?
oh, yeah, there was,
1.5 billion
yeah,
with
with
a
a B,
B.
right?
With a B, crazy. I know
Yeah,
I used to monitor one of those sites back in the day. Like,
yeah,
and they only had 18 sites. So it's not like it's
yeah,
something insane.
yeah,
Like you and I, if we figure, I've never managed 18 sites, but it's not out of the stretch of possibility. I could see myself doing it, but it's not like managing 100 sites, right? And so that's attainable for anybody out there.
yeah. And I think what's beautiful, like that is a more efficient model. And you do like, for that compared to a single site, right? Because just about any trial that comes along, as a salesperson, you'll have a site that can do that,
Yeah.
right? So it's
It
like every
becomes
opportunity
that
comes,
fork in the road becomes yes to everything. It's not yes and no anymore.
yeah,
It's yes,
exactly.
yes.
Yeah, that's where the answer, yeah, exactly how you put it very well to complete that circle and say, yeah, yes, complexity, no complexity. But there's also a certain amount of simplicity that comes from that because like all the back office services are taken care of, whereas, as the owner and executive director of Yuma Clinical Trials, your HR, your finance, you know, you're going to be the patient recruitment engineer operations, you'll
You're the
do,
disciplinarian and the motivator at the same time.
yeah, right.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
We've been playing around with this thing called Monday.com. I don't know if you,
Oh yeah. No,
we're
it's
not
a,
sponsored by it. I wish I would. Maybe I'll reach out to them. But
yeah, no, it's a great little tool.
it's unbelievable how this project management aspect, which Brad had a post recently, coordinators are essentially project managers, which is absolutely true. Especially in a more complex world, that is even more the case. All these vendors forgot about project management, like workflow management, like Creo. I mean, we have all these awesome vendors. We thought everything was created, right? And then we have to go outside of our industry to get Monday, and I'm not the first site to use it. I've copied because of SOS, I've piggybacked on a bunch of people. But it's
Yeah.
amazing. You put every study in there, and you put like the major workflows for the week that need to get done. And
Yeah.
it's important for me. I don't know what's going on, but now if my staff are inputting properly on Monday, I
Yeah.
could see where the bottlenecks are and who may need more help that week, and
Yeah.
you can kind of fix problems faster. That's an amazing tool.
That's really cool. I haven't integrated that into use at, at any of the sites that I currently manage,
It
but
integrates too. We haven't integrated yet. We're just using it to have a visual of like what's happening on all like a bird's eye view of what's going on.
yeah, because when you have like Creo or real time or, like what's amazing about that is like, if you've got multiple sites and they're in different cities, you want to know what's going on. You can always pull that up and see what patient visits are scheduled for today, what's
Yes.
scheduled for tomorrow, how's recruitment going,
Yes.
then that way you're not spending too much time bugging your site directors,
Yeah.
like to give you a play-by-play of what's happening, and you can make sure that you're steering the ship in the right direction. Maybe you need to increase enrollment on one particular trial, or or
Exactly right.
maybe deploy capital into a different patient recruitment.
Exactly. Or just tracking studies. Like I told you, we've been blessed
Yeah,
this last month. We got five site selection visit happen right after another. We
yeah,
don't even remember which one's which. I have to keep asking Katie,
yeah.
and then God forbid she has a human moment where she forgets one, and that
Mhm.
monitor emails us, "Hey, we're still waiting on this."
Yep.
Then I realize, hey, we got to put all this together. Like we're
Yeah.
doing well, but we need to figure this out better. So now we have potential studies that we're tracking
Yep.
and where we are. Did we do the survey? Did we do the CDA? Did we have the SIV? Then it becomes its own study, and you kind of, this is my way to manage the complexity on some level. Obviously, it's very basic still, but it's better
Yeah.
than not managing it, which is chaos.
Yeah. And there's kind of on that same note, I love using Microsoft Excel, but the problem is that you could use it for just about everything and
Yeah,
good enough, but sometimes you need like something great. And that's what I think like Monday
I
comes
hate
in.
that shit. Excel, I cannot
Yeah.
stand that. Chris loves that, but I suppose you could. But I think Monday, what's good about it, and it gets back to one of your core concepts of first principles, right? Like the other side of the complexity is simplifying it. That's the other thing you talk about. And
Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, Leonardo.
yep, from Da Vinci, Steve Jobs did the same thing. It's
Yeah, and I think that there was a quote about like on that in Walter Isaacson's biography of Steve Jobs, and it was like simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, and that scratching sound you hear is me scraping the back of my mind for the rest of that quote, but but not by ignoring the complexity, but by overcoming it. Um,
hmm
like that's kind of
yes.
the entirety of the Apple like model, right? It's like for the
Wow.
first time ever, it's like you had a computer on your phone that would play music and do all this other stuff. You didn't
Huh.
have to carry 20 other ones, but they integrated it in so beautifully. It was such a
So it's kind of like the hero's journey. You got to go into the complexity. It's like fighting the monster. And
yeah,
then you come out on the other side and you bring everyone else with you by simplifying it. Like, hey, it's not that scary after all, we defeated it and here's the simplicity now. And I feel like, yeah, tools like Monday, hopefully Patient Ace, things like that are available to sites
yeah,
are starting to do or helping. They don't do it for you. That's the thing.
yeah,
You need someone like Dave, like me, like anyone watching, to actually
yeah,
be willing to do it and go into that chaos. It's scary at first, and who the fuck wants to do that?
yeah.
I'd rather rather just do the same shit every day and expect increasing results.
I remember at one point in my life, I would be able to wake up and then whatever happened, I just kind of rolled with it. But the, the more that gets on your plate, the more focused you are further out. So your time horizons elongate. And since you brought up patient days, um, I like I want to just point out, and patient A, simplicity being the ultimate sophistication. Really, as the executive director of a site, you're responsible for three things primarily, and that's short-term revenue, midterm revenue, and long-term revenue, right? Like you'll want your site director to manage operations and make sure that that goes smoothly. But if we can be as simple as possible and distill things, so like for any site owner that's interested in scaling and building and avoiding and cutting through complexity, it's like you can look at it that way, short term, midterm, long term, but you want visibility into each one of those, right? And so now you can just delve into as much, as much of the minutia as possible. But short term, that's going to be your accounts receivables and knowing what you've done, what your backlog looks like, and everything. Midterm is going to be patient recruitment. Long term is going to be like studies. So like use Monday.com to track new studies that you're onboarding and new studies you've got in the pipe. But let's say midterm, or like the midterm, which is the patient recruitment apparatus. One of the things that, we were talking about SOS earlier. One of the things that, that was brought up during the panel I was on about 10xing revenue is that it's absolutely crucial to have a native patient recruitment apparatus. And this also adds to the simplicity, although simplicity not by ignoring complexity, but by overcoming it. So if you have your native, like a native patient recruitment apparatus that is constantly and regularly bringing in patients for pre-screening, what that enables and what that allows you to do is to have kind of a baseline traffic of patients. Like I look at my calendar today, I've got 8 people scheduled for today just for these pre-screenings, 10 people yesterday. I can tell you in 2 minutes how many people are scheduled for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. But that kind of gives me an idea of what the midterm revenue, 60 to 90 days. And Patient Ace has been absolutely critical. And so this is where there's immense complexity, but I think Ronak has done such a made it such a masterpiece. There's a lot of information, a lot of power, but what you can do is you can overcome that complexity by building out what he and I did, which was, basically a recruitment funnel for patients to see an ad, self-schedule their pre-screening, and then they'll come in, they'll do their pre-screening, and then this coordinator there will have a discussion like, hey, you might qualify for this trial, you might qualify for that trial, and
Yeah.
then put them on the schedule right away. So
You have someone receiving them at the site, so
yeah,
ideally it's a
complete.
generalist. What does that stack look like? Thank you for the shout out too for Patient Ace, but what e-source do you use, or how does that stack integrate? Like if you want to get into some specifics maybe?
Yeah, so for specifics of that, like we've recently migrated to eClin Pro. We've used Creo before, like Creo's really great for it as well. Creo actually, I think you have the ability to actually have these patient visits auto-populate, in
Yes.
Creo. And so I'm working right now with like Jose at eClin Pro. I always find it's wonderful to to work directly with the innovators
Founder
and
mode.
what ultimately comes out at the other end because they're constantly, building and changing things, but
Yeah.
you get something that's bespoke. Like you might have certain technologies that are a little like that are more of an amalgam of years and years of development, but like often, but also the beauty of like working with newer companies is that, at the end of, like a year of working with them, you've got something where your challenges are basically on their docket of things that they're building and fixing, and your bugs are their top
Yeah.
priority when they put it together. So I've
Well,
really
you
enjoyed.
guys are both going on your hero's journey together. Like,
Yeah,
Ronick and them, they make this scary world of Facebook ads
yeah,
seem simple, to the sites because you don't have to go in that abyss and do it yourself. Back in the
yeah,
day, I used to do that. You have to go on there, and I didn't get in the weeds, but I would go on Facebook and okay, let's manage this ad and just kind of mess around. Now it's done for you. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
yeah. And Ronak, so he'll do Facebook blasts advertisements. So we've kind of come with like we've have a couple of campaigns that like largely funnels into multiple studies. And then there's this constant contact. I don't know if it's constant contact or if it's a different tool, but this is another tool that he integrates into it that'll do automatic like SMS. I think the company backing it's
Yeah,
Twilio,
yeah, yeah.
um, but automatic SMS, and then links to a calendar, like a Calendly app. I don't know if it's Calendly either, but then afterwards, it'll also regularly stay in contact and send reminders, send here's to come show up fasted. You have a meeting here.
Wow.
Here's the phone number in case you need directions.
So you don't really need an admin then, like to pre-screen like a human.
They,
Pre-screen, schedule, right?
yeah.
That's kind of done
I
by
mean,
the
obviously,
system and
some
then in
people will
person.
show up. Yeah, and I'm kind of every like all the above. Like if whatever we were doing before, we're still doing it. We're just adding an additional funnel
I see.
so
I
that we
see.
get more patients in. And the beauty of this is that we can we take, and I don't do this constantly, but there's another phrase, I can't remember the book it came from, but what gets measured gets managed.
Yeah.
And so like, when we're kind of developing things, because it's difficult to measure Facebook ads because they do plateau in their effectiveness, and so you do want to regularly refresh them. And so but nonetheless, what what we do immediately on is like we test the effectiveness of it. So there's a couple of questions that you've got: number of impressions of the ad, and then number of click-throughs, and then number of patients that put in their information, and then number of patients that responded to the text message, and number of patients who clicked on the link going to the calendar, and number of patients that scheduled something, and then number of patients that showed up. So there's a lot of areas here where we can actually have a human input. Like when you show up to work and then you have a list of leads to call, that's really a pain in the butt. But computers do this far better than human beings do. Plus, a computer can respond at midnight when somebody's on their computer, like watching
Sure.
television, it's an ad that they're interested in, and then they get that immediate, that immediate, which is so critical. Like in marketing, I can't recall what the number is, but it's like the ad's going to be 50% more effective if they actually are engaged at the moment that they see the ad.
So do you
Um,
guys use, because I know from Patient Ace they have the auto texting thing,
mm,
right? Um, but to go beyond that, you can still program more, because I know Ronick put on our website a live chat,
yeah,
right? But what that essentially does is it sends the message to the Patient Ace app where ideally one of our humans are interacting. I mean, maybe we're close enough to where AI can do it, but
yeah,
what are you doing on that regard? Like, let's say 2 in the morning.
yeah. So it's the same, but a patient isn't going to a patient isn't going to get a response at 2 o'clock in the morning. They'll get a response
Okay, okay.
next day at 8 o'clock.
So they get that auto text, hey, reply yes, and then thank you, someone will reach out. 'Cause you can customize it, so that's what we did on our end.
Yeah. So I mean, the beauty of it at the end of the day is like, without me having to get anybody else to do something or to work without and
Yeah, yeah.
that's the 4 hour work week. That's, just to get in, stay in the,
Mhm.
literature. But that's essentially what you want. You want something that you have controls in your fingertips, the levers and the buttons are all in front of you, and you don't have to, get other people to do something to work. So, within, I don't know what it is, like I can look at it and say, okay, there's $1,000 being spent a month on ads. What that, turns into is you have this level of attrition throughout the funnel, and then that produces 100 ads that or 100 people that schedule pre-screening visits, and out of that, 40% of them show up. And so you kind of get this idea of what this flow happens to be, right? And so then at that point, you can then turn around and say, okay, I need more, or I have too many, or you never have too many, right? So I need to hire people, and so then without having to do anything differently, you can then scale it. And this is the beauty of computers and like how things have really, what things are. Why I think 2025 to 35, I agree with you that it's going to be the golden era. Um, because like you don't have to do anything other than like, okay, well, I want twice the visibility. I'll just linearly scale up the advertisement, right? And
Yeah,
so, there's going to be some plateauing. It's not going to be quite as
sure.
that second $1,000 isn't going to be as effective as the first $1,000. But, if you got 40 patients that scheduled pre-screening visits and showed up, maybe you'll get another 30. And so that's, I think, beautiful that you have these tools today that these never existed a decade ago. Like,
I
and this is
know.
something that a small business can just go ahead and employ and have
It's
this tool.
democratized to everyone, and this is why the big CROs are freaking out. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's a whole nother topic. You said something about plateauing, and well, before we get there, on the AI topic, have you at SOS? I met Tilda Research, and I just interviewed their CEO, Ram.
Oh,
yesterday, 2 days ago. Smart dude. He bought a site. So he was a biotech founder. He sold that successfully. Then he bought a site, and he was the CRC. And
yeah.
he figured out the pain points, and then AI kind of came up at the same time, and he founded Tilda Research. And
Hmm.
Tilda's kind of like a fractional coordinator, but an AI. And they
Uh-huh.
work with the coordinator to do mostly the grunt work of
Yeah.
the things. Currently, you need to use their eSource to have the full capabilities of it. But if you want to use it for just, I don't know, e-reg, like automatic IRB renewals, that kind of stuff, informed consent, amendments,
Yeah.
it does all that. It also does like QA. It's the early days,
Yeah.
so
Uh,
it's not perfect, I don't think, and it's not cheap yet because they're one of the few, I think, the only maybe that does this right now in
yeah.
research, but that might be something worth looking into. And certainly a year or two from now, there's going to be a choice
Yeah.
of more than just one vendor.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I mean, I love that. And I think the exciting thing, and this is actually a New Year's resolution for me, but I'm like, there's so many cheap and free tools that you could use for AI. It's like 2025 is just going to be time for me to explore how to utilize AI to its fullest. And
Yeah.
and so, I mean, there's a couple of things that and what I love is it works on both sides. Like you could say, okay, I hate doing this. I can give this thing to AI. Like, if you ever have to review legal documents
Hmm.
or even, I think you probably look at protocols, although I haven't fully utilized it for that. But that'll at least kind of give you at least the foundation of what you need to know, because AI seems to be pretty good at distilling things. It's not right all the time, but
No,
neither is
no.
a human being, right?
It's
Um,
getting better though.
yeah,
And that's the part where I think this was where I was gonna go. You said the Facebook ads plateau. Another thing I've found over the 2 decades doing this is the coordinator's motivation plateaus as well.
that's true.
And I think a lot of people don't think about that. I have. I've dedicated like a decade to figuring that out, and that's where I went from. It was tough for me to get away from being a people pleaser because you kind of want them to be happy. Once you find somebody good, you want
Yeah,
them to be happy and stick around. So it almost works against like me trying to get away from people pleasing. But I found a way to do it, and I think it's just because I'm older now.
yeah,
But there, like tech is a way to do that because and AI is going to open doors for employee retention, I believe. So
yeah,
all these coordinators afraid of losing their jobs, I don't think that's the case. My intention as a site owner is not to do that. It's to make your job easier so you stay longer and that
yeah,
we can do more and you can do more of the stuff you like,
yeah.
which nobody likes data entry. I don't care who
Yeah,
says yes, they're lying. All
you're
right?
right.
They don't like it.
I did have a coordinator that worked for me a couple years back who he liked data entry, but I think he probably disliked it less than he disliked just about everything else about the job. So he whenever there was data to be entered, he was like, "Oh, I'm getting right over there and taking care of that." But it's
Well,
it
job satisfaction is very subjective too because like
might,
one of my sub-Is wrote this cube for medical assistants. I gotta show it to you, but he basically on one of the axes is job satisfaction and ambition. But a lot of it is so, and this is where it gets into philosophy, subjective to that person. Because if you go from like cleaning bathrooms, of course, data entry is gonna be the best thing you've ever done, right?
yeah,
So it's all subjective based on what did you do before, what are your alternatives. But for the most people, they just hate data entry. They hate going in these IRB portals that are
yeah,
not user friendly,
yeah,
going through like 20 hoops to get the form you need when the patient's sitting there twirling their thumbs.
yeah,
Those are the kind of things I think AI can make the lives of the coordinators easier, and hopefully they last longer. With the sites now, the dark triad site owners are going to be like, oh, well, I can get rid of my humans and just have the AI minions at
yeah.
my disposal. And yeah, but if you can do that, so can everyone else, and you're not that special really at the end of the day.
Yeah, and the core of this business is a PI, a patient, and a coordinator. Like, I don't think you could pull out the PI or the coordinator or the AI patient. I mean, like, you can't really replace those three, but everywhere around it, you can innovate like crazy, without, getting into too much trouble.
Well, I talked to, I think correct for the next decade. I think we're safe.
Yeah,
If you start looking 3 to 5 decades out, I think you can replace. There's an argument for all three of those being replaced,
replaced. Yeah,
which is the scary part, man.
yeah,
In
no,
silica trials and all that. I mean, that stuff is
yeah.
not that far off, man.
I mean, that's going to be uh, like moving away from simply like hypothesis driven science is really slow. But then when you have like data driven, like in the omics world, like this is kind of
Yep.
where, my background is next generation sequencing, which is,
Mhm.
it's a misnomer now because it's been around for 20 years. And so, but you know,
Old-fashioned sequence.
yeah, so it's like you kind of go from this, and I mean, there's just so much that happens today that like, it's kind of crazy how old I've gotten, I guess. But it's like at one time it was, very unusual. Like what typically a science experiment would be, you'd have a petri dish with cells, you'd add like an antibody to it, and then you'd look at it under the microscope, and you'd have a hypothesis. If I add this antibody, it'll bind to this one thing, and it'll move into the endoplasmic reticulum of the cell or whatever, and then you should be able to see it under the microscope, right? So it was very simple, but then, within just a few years, it became like, I was when I was at the Salk Institute, working on research. There was this technology. It was a little bit pre next gen sequencing, but it was microarrays, which was like a computer chip that had a bunch of oligos, and then you could run I don't know, you could do numerous types of assays with it, but it would basically give you tens of thousands of data points. And so what we were using that for was we would do circadian rhythms experiments. So if you take a mouse, and then you sack the mouse at different times of the day, and what you'll notice is like you'll take the liver, grind it up, and then apply it to the microarray. So you'll see what mRNAs happen to be expressed at various times. And at night, mice are nocturnal and they eat, the liver will be very active at night, but it won't be active during the day. And you'll look and you'll see like, oh, 400 different genes that are involved in digestion. And so, okay, this is quite the
Wow.
rabbit trail but you take something like that, and that's going to be more data driven,
Right.
science, less
Right.
hypothesis driven science. Like the hypothesis is there will be more data around this area, but then the data driven science allows you to like identify and see other
Yes.
potential
The
hypotheses
data-driven,
from that.
this is full circle to what we're talking about because we're in the golden era of sites right now, right? And this actually is a good segue to your other career. I mean, you're a serial entrepreneur, but you're involved in the biotechs as well to some extent, right? And
Yes.
I don't know how much you're free to talk about or want to talk about, but we're in the golden era of sites. But there is a time, and we have to remember as site owners what we do. We are
Yep.
just service providers in the larger ecosystem, which is life sciences and biotech and
Yeah.
pharma and however you define the difference between those two. But we are just a small player. We're actually a bottleneck. If you want to be humbled as a
Yeah.
site owner, I know Cinexcel just got bought with a B, 1.5 billion. But if you want
Yep.
to be humbled, we are the bottom. That's
Yeah.
like very humbling to consider, but in the greater ecosystem of life sciences. So, what kind of got you into that, and what are what are your plans with that kind of stuff going forward, and
Yeah.
as far as your role in the greater ecosystem of
That's
life
a
sciences?
Yeah, so I mean, my career has been essentially following this technology from when it was simply used in model organism systems in the academic medical center world to the point where it was applied in human medicine. That's the genomics and next generation sequencing. And so, like, I feel like I've had this really exciting career where, something you're working on, a decade before, all of a sudden is like making a difference in people's lives. So, and everything that I've done has been largely largely driven by what unique value can I bring to the market at this point. Like I mentioned before that I've been focusing on product market fit, and just to add some more quotes to the whole podcast. You got plenty, but Wayne Gretzky once said, "You want to skate to where the puck is going, not to where the puck."
That's right.
And so, like I've kind of taken that route, like, during when I saw like all the, like major academic medical centers running away from COVID, I decided to operationalize a COVID testing site. And that's when I essentially left working in biotech in this space of product market fit, building new business units for these new technologies. And but I've always wanted to at least keep a foot into that space, even though because I like when I kind of concluded my I shouldn't say concluded my job as an employee, but when I went from being an employee to a full-time entrepreneur, I was working with academic medical center sites and and helping them optimize and innovate what they were doing. And so it's like I basically just got here because I just continued to follow with this technology that I was working on. And so there's still part of me that just longs for the good old days when when what you were working on was, there was a lot of, potential, right? And so I've like the way that I've kind of kept a foot in the door has been through venture capital. And like absolutely what I do is a full-time job, but I can rewind to uh, back in the days when I first went to graduate school. I went to UC San Diego, and I one of my friends there, his name's Jose Maracas. So I kind of went off and I got a job afterwards. Like he stayed in there and started spun off a company and then spun off another company. And and so I like for the longest time, I've just been like mesmerized by his career. I'm just like, man, Jose, you're really crushing it. And so he would he was kind of going through the whole entrepreneur world, like long time, before me. And so once when I started to kind of work within the site side, he had he started stepping back from some of his other responsibilities, and decided that he was going to start a venture capital fund. And so I'm just like, anything you touch turns to gold. You are a master at this type of thing. And he was like, I
We
recall
gotta
when
meet this guy, man. Can we get him on the show?
I'd love to introduce you to him, but yeah, I mean, he built this one company brilliantly. Like, they had a very small amount of seed funding, but he was able to just get NSF cyber grants. And that within technology, there's so like within a clinical research site, I've been in positions where a sponsor doesn't pay, and you have like a cash crunch right
Yeah.
away. But like that seems to be like after having read the number of books by Walter Isaacson about innovation, like that's almost the norm, right? Is that you have something with a really high burn rate. And so anyway, like after I've known him for a while, and he's just shown he's extraordinarily talented at at navigating this really difficult area. So I just decided to throw a couple of shekels in and just say like, look, I know you're gonna kick butt doing that. And
So
so
you guys are like a early seed stage funding company, pre-public, obviously, before like just
yeah,
early
so
stage
yeah, so
seed.
I think overall, like the companies in the portfolio are largely like, I don't think there's definitely nothing that's public. So it's,
Okay.
I think what Jose does brilliantly is, take something and build like it's kind of in the same realm that I think I am, although I wouldn't compare the two because he can scale much greater than me. But I think of myself as like I'm a 0 to 1 type of person. Like I like to go from nothing and then bringing something up to, a couple $1 million in value. And then at that point, it's like, I think that I'm probably, or sorry, a couple $1 million in like EBITDA, right? So I'm more like, I kind of like putting together the initial strategy. And then after that, you know, there's so many great business schools that I just am more than happy to hand off the baton to somebody freshly minted from one of those
Yeah.
programs, and to kind of run that and then go do it all over again.
Let the professionals come in.
Yeah, but anyway, like Jose built up a company called NanoSelect Biomedical, and I don't know, I think they probably have 200 people right now working from them in
Wow.
technology, and this is like
San
you
Diego
know
based?
San Diego based, took, this professor's like brilliant new technology never done before. Basically, you can isolate single cells on a microfluidics chip. And so he commercialized that technology. Now they have a couple of products that utilize that technology called the Wolf cell sorters. And and so from that, he's kind of put some, he's like taken that, knowledge that he's gotten, negotiating the venture capital world and then, applied it within phase two ventures. And
So you're
so
in the phase two. You're in the
yeah, I'm
phase
only
two
been a
ventures.
part of phase two. And so there's a couple of brilliant companies, and like this is like the Wayne Gretzky quote, you skate to where the puck is going, right? So if you think about some things in the future, like, okay, I think CAR T therapies will probably be utilized much more heavily. So you'll have I mean, it's not utilized today outside of like R&D, right? But let's say if you get a, couple dozen or 100 or more of these, clinical trials are approved, and it's probably the funnel's going to get larger and larger, you'll have a need for cell cultivating, for leukocytes, or cell harvesting like leukopaks. There's probably going to be this continuous drive towards, like lab grown meats is another one. I know these two things sound very, far off, but they've got this brilliant company in the portfolio called makes this, rocket fuel of like cell serum with growth factors or cell serum growth factors, that would, help to actually create that, that world in that future. And I don't know the specifics about like what's utilized. Anything that I know is just going to be public. Um, but it's like these are like there's essentially two methods within venture capital. Either you're trusting somebody with your money and your resources to say this person knows where that puck is going to, and I'm going to invest this person's money into this space, expecting that this leadership team is going to grow and continue to increase the value. And then there's also, which is one thing that I'm pretty excited about, like, the things that he does. And I think this is one with that company I mentioned a moment ago, is that it's not just a company where it's like, here, I've, going to invest something and let you guys run with it. It's like there's more of a, like, here, I'm going to invest in it, and then I'm also going to develop your leadership, and I'm going to help guide this company. And that's what I think, like that's, I think that is where like all of the biggest companies in the world came from, right? Like the FANG stocks all came from that, that same arena where you have these people, like you have Mark Zuckerberg, and it's like, could he, as a 19-year-old, really build Facebook into a juggernaut that it is now? Or was it that because, he went to Sand Hill Road and found some venture partners that invested in not only him and the company, but also developed the leadership team and use that network. So, venture capital in some respects is a way to take, people that are just learning, the ropes of an industry and then accelerating them, 20, 30 years because of the experience that the founders of that fund happen to have.
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to learn more about and would love to get. You said Jose,
Yeah, Jose Maracas and
Jose
Will,
Baracus.
yeah, they're the managing partners of Phase Two Ventures.
Love to get him on. I'm gonna go connect with him on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Speaking of LinkedIn, everybody gotta connect with Dave. Come on, man. You've been blowing up after SOS or staying
Oh,
stagnant in your LinkedIn growth?
I mean, it's
You gotta
once
be
you have
blowing up.
more than 500 people that you're connected to, it doesn't really. I mean, I get two or three people that connect to me every day, so
Whoa,
it,
Dave.
so it's still pretty. I
Nah,
don't know where it happens to be, but
with all those quotes you're dropping, man, you gotta have.
yeah.
You will accelerate but that's very good. SOS people, I'm glad people have gotten to know you. Part of what I love about SOS is when I see, people's universes colliding. Like I know who you are, and then I know someone else. I know you guys never met. Put you guys together, boom, universes collide, and I see that happening a lot at SOS, and I get to interview a lot of people through the show, so I kind of know them, but they don't know each other, and I'm like, you two would definitely hit it off. And then there's others where you're like, yeah, maybe stay away from this one,
Yeah, yeah.
just
Okay.
between you and I. But Dave's one of those you want to connect with. Um, I just learned about the VC stuff recently, so that's something that I'm, to use your Gretzky quote, where the puck is headed. It's hard to imagine a world without clinical research,
Yeah.
but without clinical research as we know it, traditional sites doing community-based clinic, I think that stuff gets commoditized.
Mhm.
And we got to be looking for what's next and where we kind of think we can fit in. And some of it will happen organically, but other times you have to kind of give it a little nudge a little bit.
Yeah.
Change your trajectory just a little. What's that analogy with the ship that just changes its rudder like an angle and then it
Uh,
ends up somewhere else?
yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So, wow, man. Did we miss anything? There's a lot more we could have gone, but I
Right?
think we'll save it. Each time
What?
we go on for a while.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, we've covered what, Russian literature,
Russian literature, man. We started with that. Lyndon Johnson.
Johnson. Yep.
I gotta send you one of these books. I'll send you the first one, man. You'll get hooked.
Okay. I gotta, next time I see you, I gotta have you sign my copy of the complete critical or
Oh,
guide.
yes. Okay. Here we
I don't,
go. Thank you for the plug again. The Comprehensive Guide to Clinical Research. I was doing a video about this book, and somebody in the YouTube comment said, "Is this book available for sale?"
really?
And I'm like, "Yes, all the links are underneath. Click it." I stopped checking the stats, but we saw a
Yeah.
couple a day, which is amazing.
Yeah. That's the single best resource for anybody getting started in this industry. Like, no
Ooh.
doubt.
I'm writing another one, but it's philosophical. It's like a memoir meets philosophy meets autobiography. I don't
Oh,
know. I don't know how it's gonna come out, but I'm writing it right now.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's writing
Wow.
itself in many
If you
ways.
if you need to kick some ideas, but I don't mind reviewing a manuscript.
Oh, for sure,
I've
man, when
learned
it
in
gets
Russian
there.
literature, manuscripts don't burn. That,
Ah,
that
that's
sounds
right.
good.
That's right. I'll tell you a little bit about it off the air, but thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate it. Uh, Dave LaHaye from, and his LinkedIn's underneath, but McAllen Research, Director of Commercial.
Yeah.
What is that, man? You're not site director anymore?
No, we have a site director. I mean that
Shit. How
I
does your
mean,
hierarchy work? I have a lead CRC and then a bunch of CRCs, obviously PIs and sub-Is, but then I'm still the site director.
yeah, so I mean, we're still at the very flat part of
Mm,
organization structure at the moment. But I mean, essentially, I'm the boss, but that's my that's my card for business development, right?
okay.
I'm my role is largely to bring new business in to the organization, and so I like to present this as a flat organization. So
The world
basically,
is flat.
yeah, exactly. So that's another good book. The New York Times author,
Yeah,
what,
Friedman.
Friedman? Yeah, yeah, I read that 2006, I think it was. When did it come out? 20.
Yeah, I read it in '06 too. It was a r really rich Texas guy, another Texas dude
Uh,
recommended me that one. He was like a banker and he owned a hospital. He's like, Dan, let me tell you something, man. You gotta read this book. This is where the world's headed. And here we
yeah.
are 20 years later. Trump's turning that thesis on its head,
Uh,
upside down. Trump
yeah.
made the world round again, it looks like.
Yeah, like I'm going to be thinking about this. I know you need to go because this is probably an hour and a half long podcast, but like just thinking about what we've gone over and what we've discussed, and thinking about the last 5 years too. Like, COVID really pushed the flattening of the Earth, because on any given day, it's like you're in Yuma, Arizona, I'm in Texas, we're having a conversation face to face right now. I've got a handful of other calls. I had a few other calls this morning as well with people in India and
Yeah.
people in San Francisco, or actually those are in the afternoon. But it's like, and I live in a different city altogether. And so it's pretty impressive to see. It's that I know that wasn't written from a standpoint of being sci-fi, but we're absolutely living that where I don't know if you could call it a classic. Maybe it's just
That
reached.
was a classic, and I mean it was basically spun off of the Fukuyami's idea of free, unfettered trade, open borders, and the Pax Americana, like
Yeah.
which is also flipping on its head, like this administration just turning that paradigm upside down.
Uh-huh.
We'll see what happens. I think it'll be a hybrid. Back to your opening of yes and no. I think that's gonna be the way the world works for the next couple decades.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll just kind of wait out before I form an opinion about it
Yeah,
because I look at there's the Austrian School of Economics of, where they'll just take a machine and say, okay, well, if this country charges this tariff and this country charges like 0% tariff, then it's going to be a better situation than if this country charges any tariff at all, right?
yeah,
And like the question is, how do you get slightly lower tariff? Like, and is this, hit to the 401k worth
yeah.
going through what it takes to get different data entered into those machines to, or what? So I know it
Well,
is
the
it's
complicated
like
part is
quiet. So
the second and third order effects of like, Facebook Meta announced yesterday $7 billion of advertisement from China is essentially going to disappear. And, I mean, maybe
oh
half of it will be replaced, but
yeah,
like that's real wealth loss, value destruction, right?
yeah,
And you can argue, well, it's for the greater good. That's fine, but I don't think Meta sees it that way
no,
necessarily. So,
definitely.
there's unintended consequences in these hyper-connected systems we've created that I
Uh,
don't think anyone could figure out.
yeah, and the biggest thing is when it's like all at once. It's like boom, all right, $7
Yeah,
billion gone. And
it's
like
wild.
how do you respond to that, right? That's the worst thing because like in order to build anything, like in order for markets to be stable, you need consistency, right? Like
Yes.
I mean, there's been a handful of days in my life that and just a handful where you have the markets drop by more than like 5%, right? And like I think there's one or two of them in the last couple of months, but
Oh, in the
like
last
you
couple
remember
of
COVID.
months, you got like what, 26%? Now it's recovered some, but
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember like during COVID? We
oh
should probably
yeah, the first couple of weeks,
the market kept shutting down at like,
yeah,
like 9:02,
yeah, the flash
9:01 it
crash
was
or
shut
where
down
they
because
call it.
somebody fell off.
Yeah, yeah, no, that was wild. Those
Yeah.
days were, this was, it hasn't been like that. But, our life is still simple as site owners. There's four things we worry about that I wrote about. The operations, there's patients, there's studies, and there's clinicians and
Yep.
getting PIs. So that's basically it. If you focus on that, I think we're in a golden decade,
Yep.
regardless of what the macroeconomic forces do. I mean, I think we're somewhat well sheltered for
Yeah.
at least 5 to 10 years.
That's right. And simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Just focus on those four things.
Man, you keep dropping these gems, man. David LaHaye, everybody, go connect with him right now. Like, subscribe, comment, share, and connect with Dave. Bye bye.